Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Can everybody hear me okay? You guys hear me in the back? Okay, good. First of all, welcome everybody. I know this is kind of the tough part of the day where we just got done eating lunch, and you guys are the smart ones to pick something real exciting, a real exciting topic like appraisal to listen to for the next hour. So we'll do our best to try to keep you guys awake, but we'll see how it goes. My name's Kevin Hermson. I'm a partner with Mitchell & Associates here in Omaha. On the panel today, I'll introduce Scott Mosbach first.
My name's Scott. I'd like to introduce Kurt Frazier. He's invisible. He sends his apologies. He double booked, and he is in Las Vegas at the self-storage convention. I'm with Malin Valuation Services, corporate office based in Lenexa, Kansas. We've got an office here in Omaha. We do really exciting work in the appraisal field. Work in a 6, 7, 8 state region, basically from North Dakota down to Texas. Investment grade stuff, income producing assets. So Kurt's the one with the MAI behind his name. He's the genius. So if I sound really dumb, I apologize, but I'm not. And the fact that this is being videotaped just makes me that much more nervous. So bear with me. We'll try and get through this quickly and try and make it interesting.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Again, my name is Kevin Hermson, and the other gentleman on our panel is David Wellsant, also a partner with our firm. We've been around since 1946, not David and I personally. We don't age that well. We do both commercial and residential work. As you can see, we're quite busy with a couple thousand assignments annually. We do work in both the states of Iowa and Nebraska. Now, I realize that the title for this thing today was the future of appraisal, which I hope doesn't come off as being misleading. I did not select the title. And, you know, during the preparation for this, we all thought it was kind of interesting because our profession really kind of analyzes historical things more than the future. But having said that, since it is titled The Future of Appraisal, I will mention this valuation magazine that I just recently received, where it talks about drones being possibly something that appraisers could utilize in the future. We'll wait and see if that comes to fruition. But you know, there's a lot of things I suppose that drones could benefit this appraisal profession with. It could certainly help take comp photos, so we don't have to run around doing those types of things, although on days like this, it's a perfect excuse to get out of the office. It could help with traffic studies. It could help with building measurements and sketches, that type of thing. So there is certainly potential for that in the future. But I don't know if one day we all want to look up into the skies and have drones, you know, delivering pizzas for Valentino's and delivering products for Amazon and coming into your office or home, being the appraiser for the inspection for Mitchell & Associates. So for today, we're not going to talk about drones or anything that futuristic. What we are going to do is discuss a little bit about the overview of the market, what we saw in 2014, and maybe some projections into the more near future. Topics we'll discuss today, we'll discuss the office market, industrial and retail markets, and some of the things in those respective segments of the market that we've seen change over the last few years and continue to have expectations of change moving forward. In addition to that, Scott's also going to have a pretty comprehensive overview of the multifamily property segment. So we're looking forward to that, Scott. No pressure. Let's begin with the office sector, though. Properties are categorized as Class A, B, or C, and I would be remiss if I did not mention that a lot of this information that we obtain is from Xceligent, and I know that there's a lot of brokers out there that participate in providing that information. So we are very grateful to all of you that participate for that. As you can see, over the last year, Class A properties were the strongest, had overall vacancy of only 4.1%. They also command the highest rents of any of the classes of office properties. Overall vacancy in the metro area was down in the last year from 13.1% to 12.1%. And asking rents were up about 30 cents per square foot. So that's a very positive sign that not only is there positive net absorption, but we're getting higher rents. The metro area is divided into 12 submarkets. Downtown being the largest submarket with over 4.5 million square feet. The northeast submarket is the smallest. It has less than 200,000 square feet. Bear with me, I am not the technological guy. Thank you. With regards to those submarkets, the ones with the lowest vacancy, and this would be vacancy at less than 10%, are all located along West Dodge Road, which may not be surprising to any of you. But they do include the Central West Dodge Market, Miracle Hills, Old Mill, and suburban West Dodge. Clearly, that's a corridor that's highly desirable for office users. The market with the highest vacancy, and this would be over 20%, that includes Northwest, Southwest, and Southeast. Now on this slide, it shows asking rents for each of those individual markets. You'll see that markets that had declining rent over the last year included Northwest, South Central, and Southeast. The two markets that had the highest declines also have the highest average vacancy. So clearly they're making an attempt to lease up some of that space by incentivizing prospective tenants by dropping rents. 9 of the submarkets, though, had increasing asking rents over the past year. Again, a very encouraging sign. The largest of which was the Northeast market, but it represents less than 1% of the total inventory. Now, with regards to the metro as a whole, overall asking rent increased over 30 cents per square foot. While we're still on the topic of office, I'll hand it over to David Wellsant for a little bit more in-depth analysis.
Okay, so these are just kind of some more anecdotal kind of comments here of things that we've either seen or have heard from people in the market, and kind of positions of change. The first one is medical versus conventional office, which might be a little bit of a controversial topic depending on what kind of property you're trying to market. The gist is that in the past there was a lot more emphasis medical space commanding higher rents and being worth more, in the sense of all the additional build out that you got to put in there to begin with. We're seeing a lot more cases of people kind of going the other way, almost to office buildings that have medical space in them, where they're gutting the space out because people come through, look at it, and can't see through all the medical space to see what it could be for their regular office use. One of the main stories we hear with this is that hospitals having medical space for physicians right in their hospitals or building their own facilities is becoming a strong competitor for the market. So even if you've got a well-located office building with medical space traditionally, it can be tough to compete with the hospital. It's not to say that there's no demand for medical space. We're also seeing, market's really consistent, so this makes it nice. We're seeing cases of medical space getting the higher rents, and those are generally the better located properties for medical users that are near hospitals, and obviously the more premier facilities. So it's, again, I would say you'll see a mixed bag on this. Some medical space is doing great, and others have to be gutted to switch it out for conventional. The second point there is the low vacancy for Class A. Kevin was, I shouldn't stand in front of that. Kevin was just talking about the low vacancy for Class A properties, especially low vacancy for properties along Dodge. We're seeing some new buildings going up out in the 168th, 180th area. And some of those are coming up with strong pre-leasing in them. We're seeing new demands for garages in all the buildings and such like that. So the low vacancy has spurred new development out there. And then the third one that kind of ties in there is the shift to triple net rents. Historically, some of these office properties were full service type rents, maybe passing through some of the increases over base rental levels. We're seeing more cases of landlords being in a better position where they can negotiate triple net rents and push that risk of expense adjustments in the future back onto the tenant. So they have a better projection of what their cash flow is going to be from the owner's standpoint. So.
Okay, thanks, David. Everybody still awake? Excellent. All right, and we ask you to please hold your applause until the very end. We're going to shift emphasis now and talk a little bit about the industrial market. And it's categorized this way. Property types include flex, light industrial, manufacturing, and distribution warehouse. The overall metro vacancy declined over the past year. It went from 4.7% to 3%. So clearly there's a lot of demand for all property, industrial property types in the metro. The largest decline in property type vacancy was clearly in manufacturing. That is a result of over 600,000 square feet of positive net absorption in 2014. With regards to the submarkets, there are 8 of them. The South Central submarket, which is smack dab in the middle there of the map, has the largest inventory with over 18 million square feet. Sarpy East has the smallest inventory with 1.8 million square feet. The metro as a whole has over 68 million square feet of industrial space. And we're going to talk about vacancy by those individual submarkets. As you can see, the Sarpy East market doesn't even register. Has nearly no vacancy, but again, it represents less than 3% of the metro inventory. Whereas the South Central market, which again was the largest with over 18.5 million square feet, that represents 28% of the metro inventory. That submarket had 338,000 square feet of absorption, so its vacancy is now only 1.8%. The Southeast market has the highest vacancy currently at 6%. Whereas the Southwest market, you can see there clearly had a sharp decline in overall vacancy. It's now only 3.6% because it had 660,000 square feet of positive absorption in 2014. Warehouse and manufacturing generally have the lowest rents, asking rents, and this is simply a matter of economies of scale. Whereas flex properties typically have the highest asking rents because they typically carry a higher percentage of finished space. Of the 7 markets reported here, 3 had increasing asking rents over the past year, while 4 had declines in asking rent. Again, the Sarpy East market is not reported due to its small inventory. Overall metro area had a modest rent increase of near 10 cents per square foot, which doesn't seem like much, but as David will allude to it, just about everything for industrial has been relatively stable for quite some time. So this is noteworthy. David, you want to talk more?
Okay, so again, kind of these are comments that we've picked up on. More and more brokers, as we talk to them, are noting the lack of good development space for further developments, shortage of good lots. There's always lots, but where they want to be in the southwest corridor is really kind of drying up in terms of ready to go lots. And there's more and more talk about, I guess this kind of leads into number 3 there, the limits for future development as far as where's the next wave of land for development, business parks and such going to be. There's talk about the sewer limitations of going south along the highway. So some of the existing lots that are out there may be able to push up their prices a little bit, which is kind of something that's been pretty flat for how many years? We've always kind of joked about that. You always knew what the industrial land is because it hasn't changed in 10 years. So there might be some upward potential with some of that if the alternative is to go south and have to incur those costs of sewer work or other utility extensions, that can substantially affect the finished lot prices there. The second point going with that is finally some optimism for rent price increases, new development. Rents have kind of been flat for many years, but we're seeing some upticks there. Seeing some new speculative developments. Actually encountered a large speculative warehouse, like 50, 70,000 feet, I can't remember exactly. Multiple competing offers to lease the whole thing, which is showing the strength of the market down, and that was southwest market area. So it shows the strength of the market that you can put up a big building like that and know that there's going to be someone to go in there. And then the last point there is something where industrial has kind of been focused on local investors, whereas we've attracted some national investors, institutional people for shopping centers and apartments and such like that. The industrial really so far has been mostly local participants. We haven't seen national guys quite to the same level there. I would guess that as we see some rent growth and such, some positive appreciation there, that will probably change a little bit, but that's kind of, I haven't seen a whole lot of change in that scope lately. So that's all the fun for industrial.
Okay, thanks, David. We're moving right along now. We're going to talk about the retail market. Retail market obviously was the one that was probably hit the hardest by the recession, so it's the one that had the longest road to recovery, but I certainly think that it's on that road. There are several classifications of property type, but there's a total of over 33 million square feet of retail space in the metropolitan area. Overall metro vacancy actually increased slightly in 2014. It went from 7.4% to 8.1%. Now this is despite over 300,000 square feet of absorption. What that tells me is that there's more construction going on, which is a good sign. The metro area is divided into 9 different submarkets for the retail segment. The southwest submarket, which is that area from Pacific Street South and I-680 West, obviously includes a number of arterial streets, so it has the largest inventory with over 8.3 million square feet. The West Dodge corridor has the smallest inventory with less than 2 million square feet, but as you can see there, it doesn't span very far north or south of West Dodge. Markets that had increasing vacancy in the past year included the North Central submarket, South Central, West Dodge, and Northwest. All the other ones remained stable or had declining vacancy rates. With regards to rents for retail space, the North Central and the Sarpy East, which basically encompasses Bellevue, had the lowest asking rents, all below $14 a square foot. Whereas South Central has the highest asking rents of nearly $19 a square foot. And that represented an increase of nearly $2 a square foot over the past year. Now, all 4 markets that had increases to vacancy, which was the North Central, the South Central, the West Dodge, and the Northwest, They all had increases in vacancy, but surprisingly also had increases in asking rents, which is a little bit different than a normal trend you'd see. If you have increasing vacancy, you'd think that the asking rents would be declining, but that's not the case in these four submarkets. And I can't answer why that is, but I'm sure David can, so I'm going to let him do so.
Okay. As far as the retail remarks here, the first thing I wanted to highlight is this is a little different than what we'd seen a couple years ago. We're actually seeing several cases going through with rents over $30 a foot. These are primarily national type tenants, or they may be a local franchisee of a national chain restaurant or something like that. But we're seeing more and more deals going through with that kind of rent level than we had a couple years ago. Several of these are strong leases with 10 years on them and such like that. Tend to have a little higher on the TI to get those in there, but that's one kind of trend that we've seen. The other one is that the best centers, whereas a few years ago with the recession and such, the retail was probably the one that got the most talk as having plenty of space to fill in before we wanted to start doing a whole lot of new development. We're seeing cases of buildings essentially being pre-leased or having tenants competing. One case we had 3 N-Bay tenants, and it's like, well, you can't have 3, but that's the kind of competition for the better centers that we're seeing in the prime areas. And then the last thing here, just a couple anecdotal stories here. Again, kind of going back to the medical versus conventional office space. We're seeing some landlords that really like to have the restaurant tenants and are trying to draw those guys in. They bring a lot of foot traffic through the center, good stable tenants and get good sales, then they stick around. Also seeing a couple cases of landlords trying to drive those out, trying to switch out for more of the yoga or manicuring kind of shops that don't draw quite as much traffic because of the maintenance headaches that all the restaurant traffic brings. It beats up their parking lot, and so seeing kind of a mixed bag there as far as what the preference for tenancy is. The other comment that I picked up yesterday, the small businesses are thriving, which is good news. That a few years ago, small businesses were struggling with the recession. A lot of the mom and pops kind of went out of business, and you can't collect rent if they're out of business. And then you have a lot of vacancy to fill in. The small single proprietor shops are doing better these days, and so those are help filling in the space, and they're being able to actually make their payments. So that's helping the retail side altogether. Not only just defaults, but slow payments and collection losses as well. So, I think you want to do Cap? All right. So lastly, we've talked about each of the 3 market types here. The last thing we wanted to kind of highlight is probably no surprise, but just general market trends with the capitalization rates. Locally, it tends to be hit or miss. One deal is going to be a much higher number than the next, so we kind of resorted to the national figures here to show more of an overall trend. But you can clearly see downward trend. Some of these numbers we may or may not realize here on an individual deal. Cap rates there for the warehouse at 5.82. We're probably not going to see that on every deal here, but obviously a downward trend there. All right.
Oh Lord, here we go. This is the most exciting day of my life. I'm a little bit hyper and I'm loud. I probably don't even need a microphone. Some of you I'm sure I've spoken with on the phone and I've never seen your face. It's nice to meet you all. We're just going to dive right into this and get out of here quickly, hopefully. So my topic is multifamily, and as I'm sure many of you realize, is the multifamily market is just going bonkers right now. In particular, the strength of the Omaha market, it continues to grow. It presents a number of institutional great investments. And what's kind of unique about Omaha versus some of the other larger markets that we work in is the Class A properties and B plus stuff that command the higher rent within the metro aren't necessarily focused in one particular part of the city. They're spread from, the old market all the way out to the suburbs. And there is really no, in my opinion, there's no real, thoroughfare with which everything is located. So we find that to be super healthy for Omaha in general. Regionally and specifically in Des Moines and Kansas City, apartment market's also rapidly expanding. In the South Johnson County submarket in Kansas City, we're seeing absorption rates north of 30 units a month. And they are putting up thousands of units. There's 2,000-3,000 planned, 2,000-3,000 under construction. It's going nuts down there. Same thing with West Des Moines, Johnston, Ankeny, Iowa. We've seen a lot of developers putting up product and filling up fast. This is happening because of since 06, 7, 8, 9, the recession. There's a lot of pent-up demand out there, and just not enough supply to satisfy that demand. Like I said, the tenant mix, what we're seeing, particularly in Omaha, and I'll get to these slides, I just talked, sorry. The tenant mix in Omaha is a mixed bag. You see everybody's that new buzzword, millennials. I don't know what that means. I'm 32. I don't think I'm a millennial, but some of my younger, they kind of dress weird. I don't know. They're the people that like the funkier areas, midtown, downtown. NoDo's kind of, I don't know what's going to happen there, but we see those people. They're taking up that space. Students, families, not so much. Young professionals, things of that nature. It's kind of when you get out to the burbs. And this is the same thing in Kansas City. You're getting empty nesters, just don't want their house anymore. In retirement, maintenance-free type living, and frankly, they're just not, they're not old. They're young, retired, and don't want to mow the lawn anymore. What I find interesting about Omaha is almost all the development and redevelopment in the city has been locally. A lot of local stuff. There's not a real big influx of national developers yet to come into this market and really develop something large. Kansas City, we're seeing, Cityscapes out of Indianapolis is putting up a 400-plus unit apartment complex down in South Johnson County. I live in it. It's beautiful, granted everything. It's great. And that thing's for sale right now. Pre-sale phase 2 is under construction, should be starting leasing here soon. That complex is leasing at over $30 units per month. If you're familiar with South Johnson County, it's a lot like West Omaha, wide open, nice roads, things of that nature. Well, as good as roads can be. And so that thing's for sale, and I think they've got a $210,000 per unit price tag on that thing. And I think the bidding war on that will drive that price even further up, if you can believe it. And it'll probably be a sub-6 capitalization rate, which is sweet it's just crazy. With all the new development coming online, I think locally you're going to see a little dip or a rise in vacancy, but we don't think that's going to last forever. I think the demand is just going to get supplied, but there's still going to be demand on the back end of that. We'll start going through these slides. I hated PowerPoint in school, and it's terrible. Go ahead.
What do you think our absorption rate is here?
Thanks for asking. It's part of my list. So without telling you what building, one or two of them, they were 30 units a month, and that was in the old market. 27 to 30. When you start heading west, doesn't matter Douglas or Sarpy County. We've seen 25 units per month, and we've seen down to 17, which I think 17's.
Do you have an annualized number for the metro area though?
In terms of
1,500 a year?
you know what, I don't, but if I get your information, I'll get it to you tomorrow. Okay. Sound good? I think if I can pull that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, go for it.
For the $210,000 apartments in South Johnson River, what kind of
Right now, we're at, I think on average there, about a $1.30, $1.35 a square foot. I'd actually rather open it up for questions because it's way more interesting. If anybody else have any quick?
What about Omaha?
Omaha downtown, we're seeing in between, I've seen $1.40 all the way up to $1.60, $1.70, some of the new stuff. When you go, and just to compare that and contrast it with Kansas City, when you go to Kansas City, some of the similar developments, 39th Street West, which is a 72-unit deal, went up right across from KU Med. Their average, I think, was $1.71. So they're yanking in rates. Of course, they've got smaller units because it was an infill location just to the west of Westport. If you guys are familiar with Kansas City, Westport's kind of like Midtown-ish, sort of. Kind of fun place to go. And KU Med obviously would be the equivalent of UNMC and Creighton Med here. Just a ton of people looking for places to live and not enough supply. So real quick, I wanted to show you not so much this one, but there's some interesting, this number right here, the vacancy at 2.6%, that is super low. And what I think, when you look at the rents, you can deduce the same thing. When you look at the rents between unit types compared to, so blue's Omaha, light blue's the Midwest, and red's the United States, the nation as a whole, Omaha is kind of lagging behind in terms of dollar per square foot rents that they're getting. I think that's obviously why you're seeing such a low vacancy. Yeah, that's an overall average. Those are obviously skewed by Class B, C properties. Let's see. You kind of get an idea of inventory growth rates. Omaha's, this Midwest figure is Indianapolis, Minneapolis, Kansas City. I think Cleveland's in there. So Omaha's kind of right on the same path as the Midwest and just a little bit below the United States. But what's interesting is, in terms of the Midwest cities and the growth forecast, Omaha's number one in terms of new inventory that's planned or coming online. And I think that metric's based on a per capita type. But the way that Reese does it, Omaha's up there.
You're projecting that sort of,
I'm not projecting that. Reese is.
they're projecting how many apartments are renting.
Yeah. You kind of get an idea of the inventory. South Omaha is kind of, for the apartment market, in terms of Reese, it's going to be east of 680 between, I want to say, I think it's Harrison, so the county line, up to Maple. And then North Omaha is north of Maple, same area. Southwest Suburban's going to be all of West Omaha, Southwest Omaha into Sarpy County. And then, well, not Sarpy, and then you got Sarpy County, which covers, Sarpy County is just gigantic. It covers all the way from the Platte River all the way to the Missouri River south of Harrison. So, yeah, there you go. This is compiled data from myself and Kurt. These are regional capitalization rates that we've researched, found, whatnot. You can't really see it, but I've got the Nebraska sales highlighted from 10 down to 18. And then you see there's some other ones in there that are, but anyways, if you focus on average, this is over, so from 2012 up, on average, you've got just almost a 7 flat cap rate. Now, our cap rates can go all over the board, but whether it's based on a T12 or pro forma, everybody's got a different way. Ours are full load expenses, reserves included. So please keep that in mind when you're looking at these cap rates. Like I said, so you got 6.9. There's one in there, and it may not be on there. I think it's in Minneapolis, and I may not put it on there. I've traded at a 4.9. If anybody's interested in seeing that sale, just let me know, and I'll email it to you. But you kind of get an idea where they fall, and what we've deduced is, well, that's not it. That's right here. What we've come up with is we've got a cap rate range for Class A assets in particularly the Omaha Metro between 6 and 6 3/4 is kind of what we're seeing. Class B 6.5 to 7.5. That's kind of a big spread, but that's what we're seeing. And then Class C Class C can be all over the place because what we're seeing, like down in Kansas City, we're seeing a lot of B minus, C, LIHTC stuff that's coming out. They're coming out of LIHTC, being bought up by national investors, dumping a ton of money into them and turning them in, to a B plus asset. So, it's Class C is just kind of hard to predict. Lincoln cap rates, they tend to trend about 25 basis points higher than Omaha just due to location, amenities, things of that nature. Kansas City's cap rates, what we see is they tend to trend about 50 basis points lower than Omaha. So, you've got a Class A deal. I'm trying to think of like a Broadmoor at Exarban. That thing in Kansas City would be a sub-6 Class A trade if it traded. It would, because that's a strong apartment complex, and they'd command that kind of rent and a little higher rent. And that's just so. Sorry if I'm stumbling over my words. The Des Moines cap rate range is typically in line with Omaha. I don't know if any of you have worked in Des Moines. But their multifamily is just ridiculous. They've got the condo regimes, and it's just a nightmare to deal with. So if any of you are our clients and we're a day late because it's in Iowa, I'm sorry. They're just a pain in the butt to deal with. But that's it. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, sir.
Class A multifamily, are you starting to see a thinning of amenities such as fitness centers, swimming pools, things like that?
Thank you for that question. Did everybody hear it? The exact opposite. You're seeing more amenities. You're seeing things like bowling alleys being put into apartments. You're seeing more luxurious amenities, better fitness centers, saltwater pools, 2 of them, spas. You're starting to see some of the more chintzy type amenities go away in favor for the fitness center. In order for a Class A, it's not a Class A unless you've got a fitness center, a clubhouse, it's got to have a fireplace, pool, spa, barbecue area, things like that, and parking too. I mean, you got to have that. That's the opposite. You're seeing a little bit higher end amenity package, at least in our experience. Anything else? I'm ready. I'm ready to fire. Go ahead.
Are you, we heard this morning there was some talk about less parking being needed in more urban areas, people work it out more so. Are you seeing that generally in urban areas?
We just did a quasi parking study on a deal. We kind of go both ways because Omaha is unique in that it's still a commuter city. People still drive from downtown. I mean, I drove from Lincoln to come here this morning, just because I'm from Lincoln originally. My parents said it's a free place to stay, right? So it's still, that's our mentality. It's Kansas City's the same way. I think it's roughly 60 miles. So I got to have a place to park, But then you look at and I personally think the downtown, maybe I'm biased because I'm from Nebraska, but the downtown, like Omaha, is a little more, if you take out power and light in Kansas City, Omaha's just a little more safer, maybe is a better word. And so I still want to be able to, I still want to be able to park, where I live so that I can drive somewhere else. So I think you got to have a minimum one space. What's the city regulation? I forget. It's 1.5, isn't it? So, and with some of the conversations that we've had with some of the developers, that's also, and the parking's also another valuable revenue stream with multifamily. If you've got parking, you can charge, downtown Omaha, you can charge minimum $75 a month to park, especially if it's structured. Yes, sir? Yeah. You're exactly, yeah. You got to have it. Yeah. Anything else? He's right. I like to speak in terms of how I would view it as if I was the tenant. And I guess that's, I gotta have a place to put my car.
You were talking about rent, but you gave examples. So downtown Omaha is the strongest market,
Highest rent.
highest rent.
I wouldn't say strongest market. I would say it is one of the strongest, but maybe not, it's up there. But highest rent per square foot is downtown all day and half the night. You just get you get bigger units. Once you head out west, your average unit size, it gets over 1,000 on some of these Class A deals, and, that rent gets skewed a little bit. But, yeah, downtown you're gonna see, because, your average unit size starts to get towards 1,000 and less. You see $1.30, $1.40, and they're gonna pull it because people wanna live there. And downtown Omaha is great. It's a fantastic place to be. Yes, sir.
What are you seeing in trends in older inventories, 1970s construction, phenomenon in a lot of the western cities?
What we're seeing is, and this is from, I'm going to speak to Kansas City. If you've got a 1970s vintage asset that's, let's say, institutional grade, meaning you've got a lot of units, and there's upside to drive rents with renovation, you're seeing those trade. The Romney brothers out of Utah bought 3 or 5, you guys may have read about them, down in Kansas City, all 70s, maybe the newest was maybe mid-80s vintage, all 2, 3, 4, 500 unit deals. And once you put the numbers to it, the renovation cost, the true numbers, that cap rate on that thing is it's going down. They're paying a lot of money. And the key to those places is the location. They're in really good spots. Those places, they're not getting market rent at them just because they've been managed poorly. And there's just a lot of upside. So 1970s vintage, we just appraised one, and I wish I could tell you everything about it because it's an awesome property. That's managed to a T, and we put a 6.5 cap on it because it was over 500 units, had a Class A amenity package, and they're getting $1 square foot rents, just under $1 square foot rents on average, which is for 1970 vintage, no washer dryer type deals. That's pretty good. So we felt, 500 units, you're going to get an investor, you're going to get a national investor looking at something like that we felt a 6.5 cap was, 6.8. It was 6.8. We deduced a 6.8 off of a sale comp that was similar. You guys, okay, so the BH portfolio that traded up here, that was all 1970s vintage. I think on the whole that traded for over $60,000 a unit, and it was 894 units. That was a sub 6.5 cap. That's late 60s, 70s, and I think they might have 2 or 3 buildings that are built in the 80s. But and you've got a little bit of 5 different properties, but they're all along West Center or north of West Center. But any other questions? Did I answer your question? Okay, good. Anything else? Jello shots? You guys got? They're under the table. We brought them orange. You guys go with orange, banana. Be 15 minutes early. Anything else? I can do a cartwheel.
Okay.
No, I was kidding. I might tear my pants. You guys, so I had a suit jacket on as I was driving here, and I caught the thing on my door out in the parking lot and put a hole in it, so it's in the car. I can tell you guys stories. I'm from Lincoln. I love Nebraska. We try to do the best. And, let's let you out 15 minutes early, right? Was it fun at least? Did you learn anything? Yeah?
Looks like everybody's awake.
Yeah, everybody's awake. Great.
That's good.
We don't have Jello shots, I lied. Go ahead, yes, sir.
Given this apparent disparity of what is Class A,
Uh-huh.
do you think there's ever going to be a unique distinction in more classes for multi, or bring in, say, student-type housing where your density levels are higher and things like that?
We tend to look at it maybe a little differently than, maybe not differently, but a Class A investment from our standpoint, it has to be first and foremost institutional grade. You've got to be over 150 units. You have to have the amenity package. You look at it's tough to say, because if you're pulling the rents, if you've got what you've got, it's Class A. Maybe you don't have a pool. I mean, you look at the High Line. I don't think the High Line has a pool. So it's just, I would say, in my opinion, the High Line down over on 22nd, and that's a Class A. I mean, what they've done with that property is pretty neat. I don't know if you can cut it up any other way though. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we'll call a B asset a B plus, and that's what we did with that one that I was telling you, that the 1970s vintage. We called it a B plus because, it's not newer. It's so well maintained, so well managed that we had to call it a B plus. So that's kind of how we look at it. We throw something at the wall, see if it sticks. But we try to. Does that kind of answer your question? Not really. No.
Well, yeah, I see it both sides. You said that you're seeing more amenities. I am seeing that on new construction,
Mhm.
but I'm also on some other new construction, a real thin Class A, that's hardly a fitness room. You're talking, probably 100 square foot or something like that.
Mhm.
No pool.
Is this where's this development located? Just
They're out-
vaguely.
They're out of area. They're not in Omaha.
Is it, I mean, in terms of, is it an infill location, suburban?
No, suburban type. It was just very unique, and they still call it Class A.
They did? Well, yeah, they did. Yeah, we might,
Yeah, the project's fine.
it doesn't matter what we say anyway, we don't know anything.
I was just going to add 2 points on that. One is the Class A really depends on if you're the listing broker or with the buying side. And then the other point of it is usually it's also in the context of the competition. So you may be in an area where the pool is not a predominant feature. Not having a pool doesn't exclude you from being a Class A. But if you're in a community where every suburban apartment complex has a pool and you don't, that's probably a check against you for competitive position.
Climate has a little bit to do with that too. Everybody's got a pool in Kansas City. You may be able to get away without one as you get to Omaha. Fargo, I don't think you want to sit in the pool. I mean, how long is the pool gonna be open in Fargo? Like 4.5 months? Yes, sir. Oh yeah, I agree. Well, we do. They're there using it, right?
How do you, I mean, you mentioned Des Moines and Iowa generally. I know there's still a lot of people, or owners over there because of the tax difference for commercial properties, which apartments are in, turning their complexes into cooperatives, because then they qualify for the lower tax rate.
Yeah, the rollback.
Yeah, so how do you value that over there?
Well, the rollback, we don't value the rollback.
You underwrite it as if it is an apartment complex?
We'll underwrite it. We'll forecast taxes, and we'll put a conservative increase. We'll look at the tax history on it, and we're usually bumping taxes because I was getting rid of that. 10-year, yeah. There's a 10-year, and obviously when we're doing apartments as stabilized, 1 year NOI, we're not taking that into consideration. We're going to bump taxes in an effort to be conservative, but nothing crazy. Iowa's just it's a pain in the butt to deal with sometimes, just because, sometimes you got 375 parcels. You know how fun that is? What's the taxes on this one? But, yes, ma'am.
You were talking about medical versus regular office.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another twist on that. Let's say new office building, developer plans to build the building, but goes to his bank, wants a loan. Well, lender gets the appraisal. Now the developer plans to kind of chop it into, like, say, three.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Well, which is going to appraise higher? The condo or the building for rent?
You know, I'm going to give you the typical appraisal answer. It depends. I'll let.
I want you to real answer.
It's. Go ahead. If we're appraising, so it's difficult in Omaha because you don't see as many condo office sales, especially medical space, which is typically a little larger. But we would try. We're going to try and appraise it to its highest and best use. So it could be the whole condo regime might not really have an effect on it at all. You know what? Our job is to appraise it to its highest and best use. If its highest and best use is medical office, it doesn't matter if it's condoed or not. If it's multi-tenant, it's multi-tenant. If it's purchased, it's purchased. You guys might be a little better at this because we're. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say with just being a condo, I don't know if it necessarily changes the way you're probably thinking of it, but it probably changes the way we would come at it for evaluation. If you've got an office building and they're renting the space, we would try to determine what the rents would be in there and capitalize or discount to a current value. When you switch to the condo concept, then you're talking more of almost like a subdivision analysis on a vertical structure of if they've got 50 units in there and they're going to sell them out at 100,000, 200,000 each or whatever, then you have to project out the sales of those almost like you would a subdivision of single-family lots. So it kind of changes what the perspective of the developer, and that becomes the basis probably for the valuation. Does that answer it? The facial expression says no.
You know how to get early high value is lease it to really good tenants with really high rents for a really long time. You're going to get a lot of value for that. I mean, in a nutshell, you know.
A different subject. Can you talk about allowing animals in apartments 10 years ago versus today?
Thank you for asking that question. Kurt and I are actually we're developing a Class A apartment complex ourselves in Kansas City. It's an infill location, and we've really been getting our butts kicked by the neighborhood with the owners association, and they're worried about our tenants' pets pooping all over their yards. What you see is it's just another way to collect revenue as an apartment owner. People will not get rid of their dogs. I don't have a dog, so I don't get it. But they will pay to have that dog in the apartment complex, and it is beneficial, in my opinion, as an owner or landlord to allow pets, because you're not only getting the pet rent, you're also usually getting a $200 to upwards of $500 dollar deposit, sometimes all non-refundable, which is still revenue to you, miscellaneous income. So.
Has anybody studied the adverse effects of how many tenants you lose versus how many you gain, allowing animals, and also talk about partial allowance in some buildings and others?
I've never even thought of it that way. Tenants leaving because there's dogs. See,
We introduced the idea of we lost some tenants. There's a lot of them that don't want to dealing with what you just described.
see, and I see what you're saying, because the guy that lives 2 floors above me has got this dog. It's like the size of that door. It's gigantic, hairy, just huge. And they put it out on the back porch, and it barks next to structured parking. And he's one more. They're going to kick him out because I've complained. So you're going to be losing.
What is he typically on dogs? Complete permission throughout?
60 pounds and under is usually what I usually see, a 60-pound limit and breed restrictions.
I want to know whether it's allowance throughout the complex or certain.
I can't answer that. I think you'd be smart if you've got a 26 building complex. I mean, and you can limit your dog owners. But how can you stop somebody that lives in one of the ones that aren't, and they got a puppy for Christmas? So do you tell them they have to move to the other apartment building? I mean, people are going to leave.
I know that certain buildings are allowed and others are not.
Yeah, but
Just know it when they sign the lease. So then,
yeah, but you still want them in there collecting rent from them, don't you?
well, then,
You would still, wouldn't you rather have them in there paying rent though than? I'm just throwing my opinion out there.
but it seems like if you allow some buildings, and they're that interested in the dog, they'll move to the apartment complex.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Same thing with smoking, what are you saying there?
Where I live, it's completely 100% non-smoking. Love it. And I'm a former smoker. I would smoke right now, but my wife will kill me. She would kill me. I was in the Navy for 5 years, man. That was the only way you got a break was to smoke a Marlboro. So good. Sorry. You guys want to talk about tobacco? My boss is going to watch this.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, what in the hell were you doing? I think we're done.
I think we are out of time.
High fives.
Thank everybody for coming. The overview slides will be on our Mitchell & Associates website here in the next day or two if you'd like to take a closer look. Thanks again.